Welcome to Jalsa KYC segment. This is Program Director Vinesh. Before we begin our interview, we express our gratitude to Banks Media and our knowledge partner Christchurch Bengali Community for their contributions. This KYC segment, that is Know Your Candidate, is a place where we introduce or try to make you aware about your candidates. This should not be confused with an election campaign. Right, so here we go. In this segment, we are delighted to have Tracey McLellan of the Labour Party as our candidate, and we will be talking to her and getting to know her much better than we already know. She's quite popular, and we see her around. Obviously, she's from Christchurch, a very popular face, and we see her around whenever we have our functions. But we thought we would get her into our studio, and we will try to talk to her in person. So that, because this is election year, and our purpose of this project is to know our candidates much better and encourage everybody to vote. And we would like to acknowledge Plains Media as well as Christchurch Bengali Community, our knowledge partner. So, Dr Tracey McLellan, welcome aboard. Thank you so much for taking your time. I know it's busy and wet and a bit not so good
cold,
today, but you still braved yourself and came along. Thank you so much. So we'll try to start with you. If we could have a brief about you from yourself, how you describe yourself, what do you think is your strength, and we will go from there.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and it is cold, but it's nice and warm in here, and I know the conversations will be nice and warm as well. So a little bit about me. Gosh, it's a big question, isn't it? I've been a Labour MP. This is my second term, and it is a huge privilege, I think, to be a member of Parliament. It's something that I don't take lightly. I really make sure that every single day I try and make the most of the opportunities and the really interesting people that you get to meet and the cool things that you get to do. Before I was a Member of Parliament, I worked for the New Zealand Nurses Organisation, and I loved doing that. I think nurses are just the backbone of our health system, and they work so hard and they're so dedicated, and I really enjoyed my time both representing them and also helping them be organised, and that was a real privilege as well. And before that, I was at the University of Canterbury, and I was in the psychology department there, and I enjoyed doing research mainly on either adult traumatic brain injury, paediatric brain injury, and I had done quite a bit of work with people with different sorts of dementia disorders. And I also taught quite a bit of social psychology, which was an interesting kind of contrast. Groupthink, what makes people behave the way they do, all of those kind of interesting sorts of things that people sometimes don't pay much attention to, but is a huge part of everyday life. So I've had a varied career so far, and I've always felt very fortunate that most of it's kind of centred around people, because I think people are pretty cool.
I see. And what drove you into this interest of politics? I know psychology could be in a way directly related, and then we look at nurses, maybe not so, but I understand you have been kind of a bit defending them as well.
Yes, yeah, and I suppose that's that theme that runs through. I always feel like I need to stick up for the underdog. I always think that society is as good as we choose to make it, and you've got to get out there and you've got to get involved. So I really admire when communities are always organising events or ways for people to come together. I think community is the key to everything, and really that's what got me into politics. It was just getting involved.
I see. And when we talk about nurses, I think it's directly linked to our community, because I guess Indians are making quite a significant number when it comes to nurses.
A huge contribution, absolutely. And we have to look after our nurses, and we have to acknowledge the contribution that they do make, and we have to look after them on their terms and make sure that we look after the whole person, not just the work that they do. So yeah.
But how far have we gone? Are we still going in the right direction? Because when we look at the data or what's coming out and how they still have to work kind of long hours, and then I mean obviously they're not happy with something, and that's why we are losing them. So are we doing something wrong, or is it something that can be easily fixed?
Well, I don't think it's an easy fix, but yes, nurses in general are working incredibly hard to make the system work, and that's kind of not fair. No health system should rely on having to work people so hard to make it work, and it is tough out there. And I acknowledge, all of those people who work in health, regardless of whether they're nurses, doctors, physios. There's a huge contribution made by all different types of health professionals, and they do that work because they care. People are attracted to nursing because that's what they want to do. They've got caring spirits and they want to be able to help, and so we need to make sure as a society that we're looking after them as well.
I see, and I guess we always go back to the numbers, and then the numbers of people who are reliant on nurses, because obviously our elder population is increasing every day, so that means we need more numbers, and that maybe is taking us into education. Are we having enough resources over there? Can we produce more nurses ourselves and make sure that they don't kind of run away?
And I think there's a couple of main points there, but one thing I really do want to highlight is it's all very well to train nurses or to make sure that we convert their existing training into New Zealand standards. But if they're not getting the jobs afterwards, then that's really disappointing. So if we're going to train nurses, we should make sure that there's always going to be jobs there for them. The health system needs them. There's no need for trained nurses not to have employment. We can match them up, but we do have to make those investments and make it a priority.
So can we talk about the policies that is coming out from Labour, and is there any that could relate directly or try to solve this problem that we are going to have with nurses?
Well, I can't announce policy on right here, but you'll see the theme of what we've been doing. We always have health as a priority. We are the party of building good health systems, and you will see that we have announced policy already with our Medicard and the suite of things that's essentially a universal entitlement to basic primary health, and a way to make that take away the barrier, because if people don't get help quickly, they end up in the hospital system, which is A, more expensive, and B, not fun to wait to have to get that sick, and it's harder on our staff. But we will have some other policy coming out as we get, as you said, it's election year, and as we get closer to the election, you will see some of our other priorities, and workforce is absolutely.
Can we
really
expect something about South Island from Labour as well? Something that is going to turn kind of South Islanders and say, yep, something is coming from Labour as well, because I don't think it's kind of hidden. It's quite open out there that we are always kind of treated as second best when it comes to distributing the resources, whereas the contribution that we make, we are not getting enough back from the government.
And that's really topical at the moment. I was at the Canterbury Chamber of Commerce South Island Summit or business event yesterday, and the day before that I had been invited to the Southland kind of sidebar, and that was very much a theme, the contribution that the South Island makes both to the economy, to the workforce, and to our future, and whether we're getting our fair share of whether it be transport funding or whether it be any type of funding. And I think we have to continue to advocate very strongly for that. In some ways, I know I sit on the Transport and Infrastructure Select Committee.
There you go.
And every now and again I have to pipe up with, that's great, now can we move to the South Island
Yes.
and talk about what's happening there? So it is incumbent upon us, and that's why it's important to have South Island voices around those tables, because I have been in many situations, whether it's politics or whether it's other situations, where every now and again you have to sort of go rap, rap, rap and say, oi, what about the South Island? And that's just a numbers game. That's a population issue. So it's incredibly important that us South Island MPs don't forget to have those conversations, and we do whenever we can.
And Tracy, where does your party sit when it comes to the what's happening to the council these days, like the government's direction for coming up with this amalgamation, or trying to turn this Christchurch into the super city?
So we've been very clear that we don't agree with what the current government has done in terms of forcing a really quick, we would say rushed process on those local councils and those territorial authorities. We have said that if we are lucky enough to form the government post 7th of November this year, that we will be willing to listen to the councils that have already done that work and have decided that they do want to amalgamate, but we certainly would not be forcing any of those changes on councils that have, through this process, decided it's not what they want. And we've actually heard from the people. In the Christchurch example, we know that the people in Selwyn and Rangiora, in Rolleston and Rangiora, they don't want to see this. They feel like their voice would be drowned out within the wider Christchurch context. And I fundamentally, and I know Labour fundamentally, believes that it is about what people want. It is about making sure that you listen and you honour that community voice. So we won't proceed with that, but we're open, as long as the business case stacks up, to help those other smaller groups who have decided that they do want to amalgamate.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and that takes us to our 10 minutes mark. And now we will have another 5 minutes of conversation. We will try to bring some questions from the community. We have got Amit here, who represents the Christchurch Bengali Community, who is working quite closely with this project. And that was our idea, to bring in candidates like you and try to hear you answer those questions which we hear when we go in. Like just recently we have been to the India Independence Day celebration, so we met a lot of people over there. And the major, I guess there's so many major problems they're having today, but one would be the supermarkets. How do we deal with that? Like every time a government comes in, that is including Labour, which was in government before, and now we have got National, and obviously there'll be another tomorrow. But everybody promises something, but we end up with kind of nothing. And there has just been a recent app, someone made up an app where people can compare the prices to know how they can save money. But on the other hand, we are not receiving much help from the government. What would your comments be?
And it's a huge problem. Whenever you've got that duopoly and there's not enough competition in the market, then prices suffer, don't they? There's not enough competition on those prices. That's why we set up the Grocery Commissioner in the first place. And, these things don't change overnight, but unless we're able to break up that duopoly. The problem here in New Zealand is that we are a small country on the other side of the world to most of the world's population, and we can't necessarily, it's not easy to attract that like-for-like third or fourth competitor that probably needs to enter the market. So I fundamentally believe in an active state. I don't think that it does anybody any good if the government just stands back and says, let the market dictate. I think a good government's job and their role is to actually intervene when the market is failing, and the market is failing when it comes to our supermarket duopoly. Now, the answer to that is not a simple one, and it will take time. Hence the fact we set up that grocery commissioner. We need to pick up where we left off and start making the second and third and fourth step along that process now.
Thank you so much, and let's hope it doesn't take more than 3 years. Otherwise, we'll be back to square one and have to start all over again. And the next question would be more that I received from Amit before we started the interview, and that is what would be, I think that's getting quite a bit of attraction from everyone, especially those who are doing their new builds as well. And this is something they are having this conversation with their builder. So what I'm talking about is solar, and we had this on since whenever we started, but it seems like people didn't really turn their attention to solar, and it has come to this late stage. But and I'm guessing there's already been a policy announced by Labour on that.
Yes, so we've announced our solar saver, which we're really proud of, because we're not going to get ahead on solar unless we help. And so the solar saver, there's several parts to it, but essentially it's a government-backed, low-interest loan to cover the full cost of panels and, importantly, battery. And that's the major difference, because it's all very well having solar panels and being able to use your panels, but it's the storage that we really need in this country. So a distributed network of storage is the next phase in making sure that we just improve our energy resilience. And in New Zealand, we've got an abundance of renewable energy. We are just world first when it comes to wind and all the potential, and we're not making the most of it at the moment because we haven't harnessed that properly. We've also got, as part of that solar saver, a kickstart subsidy for up to $3,000 for those who might need it. So we've got the loan part, some subsidy, because not everybody owns their own home and has the requisite collateral in their home to be able to sort of add on. So some people will need a subsidy, and if we're going to do this well, we need as many people as possible taking up this initiative, which is while we've also made sure that we don't forget renters. And that's the difference between our policy and, say, for instance, National's policy, is we know that lots of people rent. Not everybody's fortunate enough as yet to own their own home, and we can't leave renters out. And the new plug-in solar panels, which at the moment you can't use in New Zealand, but we can easily change that, means that renters can enjoy the sun as well. The sun is for everyone. Yes. And so we're really, really excited about that. And we bring this all together by making ECA that one-stop shop, so that, because it's complicated, right? And you just want to go to that one place and say, here's my circumstances, here's my budget, here's me. What is the best solution for me so that I can jump on board? And we're also going to extend that to communities so that we can have community batteries. So, for instance, a body corp or a community organisation might apply for that battery, and then the battery exists for the benefit of that wider community. So it's exciting.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds quite exciting. Of course, there'll be some other bits to it, like which we might legislation on. For example, if, as you say, if we are renters, then you might need your consent from your landlord, or maybe the legislation would be there.
Well, it's just plug in.
Yeah,
so rather than relying on the landlord to provide the solar panels, which they themselves don't necessarily benefit from because it results in lower electricity bills. It's in the hands of the tenant then.
Yeah, I'm just more like wondering, because the particular property will belong to someone else.
Yes,
whether we need that, but that could be discussion for
a lot of this is just kind of like balcony panel that you just literally plug in. $100 and something from Noel Leeming probably, or any similar shop once they're allowed to import them.
That sounds exciting. If it saves money, then why not? And the other one is, as we are talking about infrastructure and transportation, what are your thoughts on, or your party's thoughts on Gondola, the new kind of...
Oh, interesting. Yes, yeah. And that was a topic of conversation yesterday. And I agree with Chris Bishop insofar as if a gondola is going to work anywhere, it's probably going to work in Queenstown. You can see why that would be a good idea, and congestion does need to be alleviated. Congestion is it's not only bad for your time, it's a real dent on productivity in general. So if we want to lift productivity and we want to lift people's standard of living, then congestion is a part of that puzzle. And so the gondola sounds like an interesting idea. It's private, like it's private money, so to speak. And I think what the government has announced is that it would be eligible to tap into that public transport, just the same way like a bus is subsidised for someone to use a bus. So a gondola could be subsidised for someone to use that.
So what I'm hearing from you is if you are in government, that most likely you will continue with the idea.
Well, I mean, I'm not the transport spokesperson, but I would say off the top of my head, it sounds like a reasonable way to make some progress on, it's a reasonable solution to a real problem. And we've said consistently throughout this term in opposition that we are not in the market to be oppositional for the sake of it. We're not going to say things are a bad idea just because it wasn't our idea. If it's a good idea, we'll run with it.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That takes us to our 15 or so minutes. We do have a question from the community.
It's just an announcement.
Oh, there's an announcement. So there's some announcement that we have over here, which we would like to announce while during this interview. Just over 2 months remain until the Durga Puja celebration, which Christchurch Bengali Community is going to have at the Multicultural Recreation and Community Centre at Higley Park. So it is an open invitation to you and to your colleagues, your family and friends. Bring them all over. And this is also a significant milestone for the community, which will be celebrating its 11th year of the Durga Puja.
Congratulations.
And obviously we are Jalsa KYC Radio is a proud media partner for the celebration, and there'll be some more news that we'll be sharing as we go along with our show. But thank you for coming along.
I look forward to it.
Yep. And as we end up the program, before we go, just a quick last question, and we will end this conversation. So, do you have confidence in your leader?
Yes, absolutely. No,
so we're not going to have any emergency meeting, or
no, there'll be no emergency meetings. We look, I'm a real fan of Chris Hipkins. I think he's lovely. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met, to the point where, you think, oh, why didn't I read that properly? He seems to know, he seems to remember everything and know everything, and is just a really lovely person. And I think, that's the most important thing in a good leader, someone who knows what they're talking about, solid, and is a good person. And you can't go past Chris Hipkins for that.
Thank you so much. And that was Dr Tracey McLellan from the Labour Party based in Banks Peninsula. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yes, and our listeners, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening to us, and the viewers as well. Thank you for continuing with your contribution and supporting us always. We'll be back with some other video when we interview the other candidates. And just to remind you that this is our small initiative, just to let you know about your candidates and encourage you to vote in the upcoming election. And as we finish off this KYC segment, we thank our knowledge partner, Christchurch Bengali Community and Clients Media. Thank you so much.